Welcome to Subconscious Conversations, where we take a look into the intricate world of the subconscious mind and how to heal the body, mind, heart, and spirit through its wisdom and guidance. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Brielle, and I'm the sole practitioner at Springseed Wellness, where I practice the energy medicine techniques of emotion code, body code, and belief code, which were created by the wonderful Dr. Bradley Nelson. In today's episode, I will be talking about the subconscious mind and muscle testing, which are the key components of this work. But it can be a little tricky and a little difficult to understand the nuances of both of these things, which is why it's important to have a knowledgeable and skilled practitioner, and why it's an important topic to talk about. So we'll start with muscle testing. As I mentioned in episode 2, episodes 1 through 3, really, I guess, I open up a conversation with the subconscious mind of my client, and I utilize muscle testing to receive the answers directly from the subconscious mind of my client, which can be done non-verbally and completely remotely. And muscle testing is basically a biofeedback mechanism where we are monitoring the minute changes in muscle movement and or strength to determine where there's underlying issues. And there are a bunch of different ways to do muscle testing. There are ways to test on another person, and there are many ways to do the testing through yourself. And the subconscious mind is very binary and really only capable of yes or no responses. So in my work, I muscle test for yes or no responses to different questions. And I do all the muscle testing through myself with the use of a bobber wand that bobs up and down for yes and side to side for no. That's just the method that works best for me. But whatever method is being used, the way it works is your body is constantly sending out electrochemical signals all throughout it at all times to keep you functioning. But if there's a negative association with something in particular, or you have an injury or an illness or a toxin that's interrupting those signals, then the subconscious mind will respond in a different way to those stressors than it does to positive associations or if the energy flow is good. And that change in the subconscious response will change how the minute muscle movements of the body perform. And it's in those subtle muscle motion changes that we can track what tests strong or gives a yes response and what tests weak or gives a no response. And it's essentially the exact same concept as a lie detector test, but without the fancy machinery, which is really cool and really efficient. However, there are some limitations to muscle testing. For example, if I'm dehydrated or have a physical issue flaring up, or if I'm not in a completely neutral state of mind, it can throw off the results, which is another part of muscle testing. It's not just the assessment of the physical reactions to the questions. There's also a craft to it as well, a carefully honed skill. And a practitioner can become skilled enough at their craft that they can start to feel when there are limitations at play. For instance, if my muscles are sore, I can feel the difference in how my body responds, and I will adjust as necessary to avoid any interference there. And likewise, I can tell when I'm not in a neutral enough state and my biases are throwing off my answers. Now, this mostly only happens when I work on myself, which is why I occasionally reach out to other practitioners to work on me as well. But anytime I feel myself not being completely neutral, confident, centered, and grounded, I can feel those minor changes in how my body and my bobber are moving. And when that happens, I just take a deep breath and remind myself of Dr. Brad's famous line of, I just work here. It's a really good way to remind myself to stay completely neutral because helping this person really has nothing to do with me. I'm just the intermediary or the interpreter, if you will. But when I'm working on myself, it has everything to do with me. And my conscious mind is oftentimes struggling to give up control and just listen to the subconscious. But I just remind myself how important it is to remain open minded with myself and just listen to what my subconscious is telling me, even if I don't want to hear it, because that's what I need to heal. And once I remind myself of that, I'm back to neutral again and everything works smoothly. Which leads me into the subconscious mind. But I'm not going to dive too deep into this subject because there's just way too much to say, so I'm going to try and keep it simple. So, the conscious mind is the logic center where all the millions of stimuli from our surroundings are interpreted, filtered through logic and critical thinking, and are analyzed. And then once the information is filtered through the conscious mind, it's then stored in the subconscious mind, which is like a ginormous data bank of all your experiences. And that's not all. The subconscious mind can actually be broken down into different components. There's the subconscious, which is responsible for all your automatic bodily functions. There's the unconscious, which stores all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and experiences. And the collective unconscious, which holds ancestral data of all mankind. But for ease, I'm just going to use the term subconscious. The purpose of the subconscious mind is to allow us easier action in life by not being constantly bombarded by having to think through every single little function of our body and every response we have to different stimuli. And it's also very important for keeping us safe from physical harm and emotional harm by creating associations and exercising pattern recognition. Now, this is where our life patterns, learned behaviors, habits, and belief systems are formed and stored. It's very much like a computer that houses tons and tons of information and follows certain built in programs, but it can also have additional programs entered at any time. And it works in conjunction with the conscious mind to control basically everything we do. But there are limitations and some tricky ways that the two interact with one another as well. For instance, sometimes during a session, the conscious mind will try and take over because it thinks it knows everything. But the point of these sessions is to let the subconscious mind be in control, because this is where you hold all the secrets to what drives your actions and reactions in life and holds all of your hidden truths about your life. And this tendency for the conscious mind to want to take over is exactly why I tend to ask all the questions silently in my sessions. Since this conversation takes place energetically rather than verbally, I much prefer to just circumvent the conscious mind as a way to ensure the most accurate response. But there are also limitations within the subconscious mind. First and foremost, your subconscious mind does not know absolute universal truth. It only knows your individual truth as formed by your personal, unique perspective. So if someone asks if their partner is cheating, for example, I can ask the question, but there's really no certainty about the response because the answer could be yes, simply because you suspect that they're cheating and you've already convinced yourself of it. Or conversely, the answer could be no, simply because your conscious mind doesn't want to believe it. So if your conscious mind has already determined what it believes, That is then input into the data bank of your subconscious mind as part of your truth. And the subconscious mind has no capability of logically discerning whether or not to accept that information. But there's another tricky piece to how the subconscious works, because it really likes to please the conscious mind. They're constantly working in tandem, where the conscious mind tells the subconscious mind what to do, and the subconscious mind does it, but to whatever degree it deems to be within safe parameters for you. For example, my conscious mind tells my subconscious to go across the room and pour some coffee because I'm tired. My subconscious will control all the movements necessary to complete that task, but it's going to do so slowly and cautiously because I have an irritated muscle in my knee. So the conscious mind tells the subconscious to do something, and it complies within the boundaries of your unique situation. You can think of it as the conscious mind is the traffic light indicating stop or go, and the subconscious mind is the acceleration speed. So the subconscious is limited to what the conscious mind tells it to do or believe, but it still holds a vast amount of deeply detailed information about all your experiences, which help shape how you behave. And the conscious mind doesn't have access to all that information. So it's really super helpful to be able to utilize the information that the subconscious holds and to understand how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind work together. Now, another limitation is timelines. Time is not linear in the subconscious mind, and it's heavily geared towards pattern recognition. So, if you experience a particularly stressful event, your subconscious mind is going to record every single detail about that event, such as the pollen in the air, the temperature, the speed of the wind, the intensity of the light, and so on. And the next time you're in a situation where there are similar conditions to that past stressor, your subconscious is going to start throwing out warnings as if that past thing is currently happening. And then it's going to record all the details of the current situation and add them to the data bank of the past situation as if it's all one situation. And then the next time you're in similar conditions, it happens all over again. And although this is a very vital safety mechanism, it can get a little out of hand and end up being kind of like the birthplace of anxiety. Because your subconscious can create such a huge intertwined web of events together that it ends up creating a situation where someone is extremely easily triggered into feeling like they're in danger when they're not. And I'll get more into anxiety in a later episode, but for now I'll move on. So we can ask about the age of certain energy became trapped, or when exposure to a certain toxin occurred, or anything along those lines, but it's not always going to be exactly accurate. But it is pretty darn close, usually within a year or two, but there is room for error there. Now, along those same lines, another limitation is future seeking or open ended questions. Now, your subconscious records all the details of your past experiences, but it has no way of knowing what the future holds. And there are far too many factors at play in life to be able to discern what is or isn't going to happen in the future. But you can still ask, and your subconscious will still give you the best approximation of what might happen based on events and knowledge from the past, but there's really no way of knowing for sure. And similarly, the questions need to be specific and precise. If I'm asking open-ended questions, or if the question isn't specific enough, there will be too many possible data points to draw from to be able to get a clear and accurate answer. It's like if you're wondering how much money you have to spend on groceries today, you're not going to want to know the average balance in your bank account over the past year. You need to know the exact balance today. And the subconscious mind kind of works the same way. If you ask a vague question or an open ended question, it's like asking for the yearly average balance when you actually need to know how much you have to spend today. But as long as you understand the limitations of the subconscious and the nuances of muscle testing and how the conscious mind and the subconscious mind work together, it's a really powerful tool to unlock what you need to heal. Well, thanks for joining me today, and please be sure to join me for next episode where I will be talking about the healing process and how progress in this work might unfold. See you then! If you would like to set up a session with me to experience this work for yourself, please go to springseedwellness.com. If you would like to find a practitioner in your local area, please go to discoverhealing.com. And please always feel free to reach out with any questions or specific topics you would like me to address. See you next episode.